On the upper right side of your mat, we have variations. And as we remember from the theoretical video just before this, these are the primary principle that drives our reinforced mentality. You see, we're looking to reinforce functional movement patterns, and we know that function is the needs and wants required to accomplish a goal. The purpose of R2 is to give the client what they want, whether it's strength, power, balance, stability, endurance, more athletic skill, or even just the confidence to execute movement patterns safely. So here's the cool part. We talked about the theory of the 10 observational essentials. Let's take it and apply it to what it looks like with the Procedos, remembering the concept of 3D that validates our ability to have this principle. Now, looking at the top right-hand corner and knowing that we don't have to remember anything because it's right there for us, we're merely here to decode it. And being the curious scientist we are, it's easy for us to use our powers of observation to really decode what's there. The first word on variations is action. And very simply, as we stated before, action simply means exercise. Before we do anything with the client or even with ourselves, we want to figure out what we want to do. And the action can be as simple as a squat. It can be as simple as a jump, or it can be complex as a squat to a lunge to a jump. So we squat, we lunge, and we jump all at the same time. But action gives us the power and the authority to really combine exercises as we see fit. When we look at environment, we're here on a wood floor. We have the Procedos as our environment, but let's consider now being in the gym, and let's consider using maybe a Bosu ball next to it, using a step, taking the Procedos outside, maybe sticking it by a pool, maybe having it on the grass or in the sand, on the asphalt. And then we think about environments such as temperature, such as noise, such as inside or outside, such as at home or in the gym. And we realize that environment gives us the ability to manipulate how we're gonna work out. We go down from there and we have position, and as before we talked about position being really exciting because not only do we change our beginning position, but we can change our end position as well. So looking at Procedos, we typically start 4 and 6, right? We all kind of start feet shoulder width apart. Now let's go ahead and execute our action. But let me have you consider, if I'm standing back here and I'm looking at my environment, well, I have a certain set of observables that's going to denote a certain thought process. Conversely, if I change my beginning position to up here, well, now looking back, I have an entirely new set of observational targets. So that means if I change my beginning position to the side, well, this changes it again. And if I change it to the other side, it changes it again. And any position I put myself on the platform, whether it's here to begin, whether it's here, whether it's with a slightly internally rotated foot, maybe if I'm a wide receiver, my left foot's on 2 red, my right foot's on the toe here, this is my beginning position, and however I want to execute an action, I can start there. But let's think about position not only in the beginning terms, but like we talked about before, the ending terms. So if I'm beginning here and my action is a jump and it's a left lateral jump and my targets are 4 and 6, but my ending position can maybe be the opposite side 90, well, now all of a sudden I'm here and I'm here. I'm here and I'm here. So I'm not just jumping in and jumping out, but all of a sudden my entire system changes by denoting where my ending position is. Think about becoming accurate, knowing that our targets are here. If my action is now a jump, and my jump is to the 6, but my ending position is 1, right? I'm here, here. This is my end, and now I reset. We talked a lot about just standing positions, but what if my beginning position was a little different? What if I was left foot 4, right knee 9? And all of a sudden now you see how our environment changes and our ability to now implement these foundational exercises change. What if I was here and what if I moved to the 1? What if I did a lunge from here and I went from the 4 to the 2? What if I then combined my actions, I went from the 4 to the 2 with the reach to the 45? And now we can see how the possibilities become endless. Of course, my beginning position can be on both knees. It can be on my hands. I can change my beginning and my end positions all over the platform. It all opens up once we become curious as to what the words mean, as the power and potential behind decoding the system that's in front of us. Moving on down, we know what a driver is. We went through it. We have our feet, we have our knees, we have our pelvis, we have our trunk, we have our shoulders, we have our hands, and our most powerful is our eyes. The thing I'm going to bring your attention to when using Procedos is we use multiple drivers. So what if we're on the 7 and the 9, and I say right foot, lunge to 3, left hand, reach at shoulder, 45. And it'll look something like this. And now I have multiple drivers that are creating. And let's say I want to add a third driver. Let's say, hey, eyes, look left 90. And all of a sudden, if I'm looking to create some cervical influence and I'm looking to create an intervention that might strengthen my neck's ability, or if I'm a tennis player and I have to get into a backhand, maybe all of a sudden something like this becomes much more functional. Remembering the needs and wants required to accomplish a goal. We move on down, and the three most important words, as I talked about before, are direction, height, and distance, are triangulation. All movement, all exercise has to go somewhere, and if we remember the story of the marksman, unless we can see our target, we're never going to hit it. So we look at direction, and we say, okay, well, if I'm oriented here, my direction is obviously three-dimensional, but my environment dictates that I go forward. If I'm here, my environment dictates that I'm probably going to go here. If I'm up here, my environment dictates here. So the reason that these words are listed a little bit later is because once we understand where we're beginning, we know where we can go. Also, Procedos takes into account our height. And our height is basically our body's ability to denote triangulation. So we saw in the lunges, in the squats and the reinforced workout with Marissa, that we were on the 9 and the 8, and we said, okay, initial range of motion squat, but we're gonna follow these three angulations. So we squatted, squatted, and squatted, and we went to initial height. The next thing you did with the reach was you reached, but you went to mid-range of motion. That's a height change. And then at the end, to load yourself for that maximal jump, we loaded down and we jumped, but we got to end range of motion height. We can do the same thing with a lunge, where we're going to initial, to mid, and to end, all by changing the height variation and any combination in between. Distance is one of those things that the Procedos makes really easy for you, because just by changing the numbers, you're changing the distance. So going from the 9 to the 6 changes the distance, to the 3 changes it again. If I go to the 2, I've changed my direction. I go back to the 5, I've changed my distance. To the 8, my distance again. 7, direction, and so on and so forth. Potentially manipulating my height variable as well. Moving on down, I have my load. And we know that load can be anything from a dumbbell to a barbell, medicine ball, to a plate, to a resistance band, to our own body weight. Manipulating load is one of those things that we like to think about a lot in standardized training, but we really need to apply the principle or the concept of 3D to the principle of the observational essentials to really leverage our exercise variability. Now, the last two words on the platform are both rate and duration, and these two go kind of interchangeably with how fast, how slow, or how medium is your tempo, and how long are you doing it. When we look down here and we say, if I'm standing on the 9 and the 1, and I want to do a reach, my duration can very simply be all of these 8 angulations. And if I go through here, my duration becomes 8. But let's say I change my height variable and I do a reach at shoulder, but then I do a reach at hip. And we can see now how my duration becomes 16. When we look at functional exercise and we look at authenticating the various ways of changing up the foundational exercises with our bodies related to a goal, the rep counts become nebulous. Now, of course, if we're training for a specific goal like powerlifting, for strengthening, or for creating more endurance or stability, yes, there are scientific studies to back up the certain rep count. But when it comes to saying, hey, I want to move better, pain-free, and more endurance, well, there's really nothing to dictate what rep count is appropriate. And what's even more interesting is if I'm standing here and I want to do a lunge as an action and I do my 27 different lunges, well, no two exercises are the same. So technically, if I want to get a set of 10, I have to do 27 times 10. I have to do 270 lunges just to reach that threshold. Imagine how your legs would feel after that. But not only that, imagine the stress that would be distributed throughout the body and the protection that would be buffered through, given the resilience prospect of moving that stress throughout the joint and throughout the muscles instead of hammering the same thing. If you walk through the grass in the same path every day, you're just going to wear it down. But imagine moving in all different directions. It gives the body time to recover and recuperate. That's why when we talk about duration, we have many different options for programming that we'll get to a little bit later. But note right now, we want to create functional resiliency. We want to give the body and the person what they want. And if it's endurance, if it's HIIT, if it's cardio, if it's sweat, then really there's no limit to the amount of number. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take the foundational exercises, we're going to take the 10 observational essentials, and we're going to deconstruct and apply our principles to the R2 workout that you did so you can have a little bit better understanding of the why behind the what.